Welcome to session 1 of module 3. Okay. So module 3 is dealing with system models and design and implementation. So we can consider module 3 to be of two parts. The very first one being system models and the second part being design and implementation. Okay. Now what exactly will be dealt with in module 3, how it is related to the previous modules, and also how it will take a transition to the further modules, that is module 4 and 5. So I'll just brief you regarding that before entering into the actual topics that are there in module 3. Okay. So in module 1 and 2 we understood how the requirements or the needs of the clients are collected, documented, okay, and how those requirements take a transition in the form of a plan which we call as design. Okay. So now we are planning about how to design the software, okay, how to exactly plan the different features and functionalities for the software, which ultimately will help us serve the requirements of the clients. Okay. So we regarding the planning aspects we had dealt with in module 2. So also in module 2 we understood object-oriented modeling is the best way of planning our design. Okay. So there are various reasons into it which was explored extensively in module 2. Okay. So now once we are done with module 2, so we are clear with our design. Now the next thing is we need to document the design, we need to present the design. Okay. The big question here is how to present our design details. Okay. So what are the ways in which you can present your design details? Okay. So one obvious way is presenting the design details in the textual format, explaining your design using paragraphs of text, statements. Okay. An alternate way, a better way of doing it is using graphical illustrations to present your design idea. Okay. Which one is better? Okay. So if you consider the human perspective, the human aspect, okay, so we are hardwired to process graphical images. Okay. We are hardwired for visual processing, okay, not for processing or reading textual theory. Okay. So considering this human capability, so the obvious selection would be going with graphical illustrations. Okay. To put it in simple words, whatever design plans we have decided upon, okay, so we will document it, we will represent it using graphical illustrations, and that is what we call as system models or system modeling. Okay. Now what are the ways in which you can do it? How you can graphically represent your design plans. Okay. So all those things will be dealt in this part of the module, that is module 3, that is system modeling. Okay. Now just now I mentioned module 3 also has one more part where explicit exclusive discussion is about design and implementation, or design taking a transition into implementation. Design related aspects already we have discussed in module 2. Okay. Now after we illustrate, we present the design using graphical models. Okay. So we are done with one portion of the work. Now we are left out with the next major portion, that is coming out with a model which can be deployed, okay, which can be used by the client. Or to put it in simple words, we need to enter into the coding aspects. Okay. So you collected the requirements, you came out with a design plan, you modeled and presented your design plan. Okay. So that was up to module 3, and module 4 and 5 onwards will be implementation, planning your project, managing your project, testing your software. So all these are distributed across module 4 and 5. Okay. So now I was talking about the second part in module 3, that is how your design can take a transition into implementation. So that aspect will be dealt with in the second part of module 3. Okay. So in a nutshell, your module 3 is dealing with two major topics. One is system modeling, which will give us a description about how exactly we can present our plans using graphical illustrations or graphical models. The second part in module 3 is design and implementation, where we will deal with how design can take a transition or should take a transition to implementation. Okay. So that was a brief introduction about module 3. Now to start with the very first topic in module 3, system modeling. Okay. So a brief of it already have explained. Okay. System models are graphical illustrations which present your design plans. Okay. Now the very first thing that comes into your mind, is it that system models have only graphical elements? Okay. Need not be. A system model can even have textual description of the graphical elements, meaning to say that I have illustrated a graphical diagram. I have used a graphical diagram to explain my design plans. What are the different graphical elements, what they are depicting, okay, what it is representing, what it is demonstrating. A brief textual description of it can carry with the graphical illustration, meaning to say that system models have both graphical illustrations and textual description. It's a combination of both. Now the emphasis will be more on graphical illustration. Okay. So with trivial emphasis on textual illustration, because already I made a point, our brain is hardwired to process graphical images. Okay, meaning to say that we can visualize in a much more better way, we can get more clarity if you see a graphical illustration rather than theoretical text. Okay. So now to start with, what is system modeling? So already we have covered it. Okay. Now the next question is, do we have a comprehensive coverage of the software in system modeling? Or to put it in other words, do we represent all the details of the software in using system models? Okay. Now we will try to explore the answer for this question. Is it possible to represent all aspects of the software through system models? So the answer is no. Reason being, if you try to represent everything, the graphical illustrations will be complicated, it will become cluttered, and it will be difficult to understand what exactly was the design plan. Okay. So the general usage is we only construct, we only do it at an abstract level, meaning to say that we handpick few crucial design aspects of the software and we represent it as a system model. Or to put it in other words, we do not go into the detailing of our design plan and the system model. It's only at an abstract level. Okay. So to put it in simple words, or to summarize it, all the complete design plan will not be illustrated in system models. It is at an abstract level. Okay, it's an overview highlighting major aspects of the software in terms of design. Okay. So that was the answer to the very first question. Okay. Now the second obvious question, what is the benefit of this? Who will use it? Okay. So we have come out with graphical illustrations, we have come out with very beautiful graphical models. Who will use it? What is the benefit of it? Is it that we just have one single user who will be using this, or is it that it is just for the sake of some formality we are doing it? So the answer is, so there are many stakeholders, there are many stages at which or during which these models, okay, will be utilized. So just to give you a glimpse of it, see, once we are completed with the design, we enter into the implementation. Okay. So now you enter into the implementation part, you complete the coding, you give the software to the client, client starts using the software, and he is not happy about a specific feature, okay, or maybe he was not expecting that feature in these lines, okay, meaning that, or the features were expected in a different way. What if the client indicates that at that point of time when he is using the software, client is giving some indicators that no, this is not what he was expecting, okay, it was different. Now definitely it will be a very tough situation at that point to make changes to the software, okay, because one small change will have a cascading effect on the remaining parts of the software, because it's tightly coupled. We have different modules which are interdependent, interrelated. Coupling is very strong. Now instead of going to that point and doing the required changes, it is better to show the design to the client, okay. Once again, please try to remember, we are not giving textual description to the client which has technical jargons. We will demonstrate our design plans to the client using graphical models, and obviously the clarity will improve. The clients can easily understand with simple explanation, okay. So we will use those graphical models to explain our design to the client, okay. So the client will go through it. Any changes he will inform then and there itself. We will fix those expectations, we will refine, or we will incorporate those changes. We will rework on the model, system model, and once the client finally approves the design, then we will go into implementation. The obvious benefit is, once you are done with the implementation and your working model is ready for deployment, you give it to the client. The chances of client indicating changes is very low. The probability is very, very low, because the client has already seen the design, okay, what he was expecting, whether it is there in the design, whether it's part of this design. So he can visualize then and there itself any changes, any modifications, he can indicate it, and suitable changes can be done, okay. Now is it that the system models are only helpful for demonstrating our design to the client? Okay. Need not be. It can also be used by the implementation team, okay. So just now I mentioned, once we complete with system modeling, okay, so we start with the implementation. So we have an exclusive dedicated set of teams who will be responsible for deploying the system, or to hard code the system, okay, and also to test the system or the software for any flaws. We have a separate set of teams, okay. Now the teams should understand what exactly they need to build, okay, what exactly they need to code, okay. So they need to get that information, okay. Now from where they can get that information? Obviously it's a requirement document, as we had already mentioned in module 1. So we have the SRS, and SRS is a very crucial document, okay, used by the implementation teams to get to know about what exactly they need to do, okay. And also these system models with graphical illustrations can really help the developers or the coders understand what they need to do, and they can plan and code appropriately, okay. So that is one more junction where these models can be used. Now once again, is it only during implementation? Once again, need not be, okay. After the software is complete, it is given to the client will start using it, and we know the complete story. It's not the end of the software process, as we had highlighted in the very first module. Software process starts with requirement discovery, that is collecting the requirements from the client, and we have a set of steps, a series of steps, which does not conclude at the point of time where we are giving the software to the client, okay. So once you give the software to the client, Once you deploy the software and the client starts using it, so we actually enter into the next major phase called as maintenance. What is maintenance? It was briefed in the very first module. So where we understood flaws may arise because of specific situations at the client side, okay, because of specific input, which may not be the case when it was tested, okay. So now what the client will do? So the client will inform those flaws, those issues to the maybe development team, okay. So the development team, if it is the same, well and good, but typically in a software company, teams keeps on, it keeps on changing. The team members who are part of the team, they may be put into a different project, or they may have left the job, okay. So a completely new team member may be part of the development team now, who is assigned to that specific project, okay. So now in order for this new team member or new team to fix that issue, they need to initially understand the design. They need to understand what exactly was the plan with respect to the software. What modules were there, what components were there, what interfaces are there, how exactly it has been planned. See, if they understand this, then only they can fix the flaw or issue that was discovered during usage of the software, okay, that we call as maintenance. Okay. Now, how these how the maintenance engineers can fix the flaw. Okay, so by understanding the design. Now, from where they can understand the design? So once again, system models that were developed, that were generated. So definitely it can serve as an input to the maintenance engineers, okay, or for the development team to address those flaws or issues. So the point here is, system models are not just for the sake of documenting something as a formality, okay. It has its purpose across a broader spectrum, okay. It may be explaining the design to the client, convincing the client, taking the approval of the client, or it may be helping the coding team understand what exactly they need to do. It may be helping the maintenance engineers fix the flaws or issues by understanding the existing design. So system models play a major role, okay, across the spectrum. It is not at one point or in one single stage, okay. So it is across a broader spectrum. So that is what we need to understand. Now the next question we need to address here: system models. Is it that we just have one single model or one single way of modeling the software, or is it diverse? Okay. Once again, if you remember, we had seen software, different types. Softwares are diverse. Okay, it is not very specific to a domain or an application. Okay, it is diverse. A software may be a college management system, a hotel management system, okay, a control system in a nuclear reactor, a control system in a Boeing plane. Okay, please see the diverse nature of the software. Also, we understood the software is diverse. Okay, so the software engineering process is also diverse. You cannot follow one process across all the softwares, for all the softwares. The process is also diverse. Okay, so now why this discussion was taken up at this point of time? Okay. See, if the software is diverse, the process is diverse, obviously the models will also be diverse. Or to put it in simple words, we have different software models, different types of software models which can be used to present our design ideas, to present our design plans. So different models are there. Okay. Now, what are the various models? Details of it we will discuss in this part. Okay. Now, already I had made a point, system models do not give complete information about the software in terms of the design. Okay, it is not giving a comprehensive coverage of the design plan. The very reason I had mentioned. If you try to put everything, all aspects of the design in the model, it will be congested, okay, it will be clumsy, and it will be difficult to understand. So we handpick only the crucial ones, and we make it part of the model, and we try to present our plans. Okay, so that is how we do it. Also, the software is diverse. Already we have seen this point. Okay. So modeling is at abstract level. Also, modeling is perspective based, meaning that of the different aspects of the software, which aspect you want to present and how you want to present. Based on that, you will choose appropriate model. Okay. So now, if you have not understood this statement, I will give you an example, real-time example. Okay. Now you consider you are standing in front of a car. Okay. So the view you are getting, the view you can visualize is different. So if you are standing in the front of the car, the specific view that you are experiencing is different from the view when you stand maybe towards the left side, right side, or the back of the car. The view is different. Okay, so that is what is a perspective here. Okay, so based on how you view the software, okay, based on how you want to present the plan. Okay, so we have different perspectives. Which perspective you will choose depends on what exactly you want to convey and to whom you want to convey it. Okay. Now we will explore what are the different perspectives that are supported in system models. So the very first perspective. So we understood what is system modeling. Okay. So we are exploring the second topic, models from different perspectives. Okay. So under system modeling, we are exploring the different perspectives that you can use to present your plans with system modeling. What are the different perspectives? The very first one being the external perspective. What is the external perspective? So name itself is giving some indicator, external. Okay, but what perspective you will present your plans about the software, okay, that you have designed and that you are about to develop. Okay, so external perspective. Here the focus will be towards the external entities with which our software will interact. Okay, so consider this is my software. I will give you a few examples in the later part of the discussion. This is my software. Please note, I am not demonstrating, I am not depicting the internal details of the software, nor I am talking about the behavior of the software. Okay, I am only presenting my plans about how, what are the different entities with which the software will interact, okay, in the outside environment. So my software is interacting with maybe a system. I'll call it a system 1. It's an external system, outside system. My software is interacting with maybe a system 2, a different system. I'll give real-time examples to improvise on your clarity. So my software is interacting with maybe a specific stakeholder. Okay. This is what is presented in external perspective. Please note, I'm not talking about different features in the software, functions of the software, nor how the software is behaving. My emphasis is on what is there in the environment of my software. What are the other systems, okay, with which my software is interacting. Okay, so that is what I will be modeling. That is what I will be presenting in the external perspective. Okay. The second perspective, the second way I can present my plan is the interaction perspective. So it is the interaction perspective. What was lacking in the first modeling technique will be covered in the second one. See, in the first modeling technique, we did not demonstrate our plans with respect to how exactly the interaction happens. Okay, but that is not the case in the second model. If you want to present your design plans by showing how exactly the interaction is happening, okay, between the system, between its environment, and even between the components within the software. Okay, so we have the software, there are various components inside the software, there are various systems outside the software. Okay, now how the different components inside the software are interacting, how our software is interacting with the outside systems, external environment. Okay, so all those things, all those plans will be depicted in interaction perspective. Third one is structural perspective. Now what is our main focus in structural perspective? So name once again is giving an indicator here, structural. Structure means what? Structure is different parts, okay, which together has formed a whole. Okay, in this context, the different parts or components of the software which are interacting together, which have been combined together to form this software. Okay, so what are the different components, how it is organized, what are the different divisions in the software, okay, will be presented, will be modeled in structural perspective. So focus here is on the different parts of our software. Okay, we are not talking about what is outside the software. Okay, we are exclusively focusing on the different parts of the software within. Also, what is the input data, how the data is processed. So these things will also be dealt in structural perspective. Okay. The fourth way you can present your design plans. Once again, depending on the need. Okay. See, if you want to explain what are the other systems with which your software is interacting, you want to explain this to the client. Now you will choose this. You will choose the external perspective. You want to explain how the software components are interacting with one another. You will choose the interaction perspective. So it depends on the situation. Okay. So we were dealing with the fourth one, the behavioral perspective. So what is behavioral perspective, and what exactly we are dealing with, what exactly we are modeling here. Okay. So a behavior models the dynamic perspective of the software, or to put it in simple words, for an event, what will be the behavior of the software? For event 1, how it will behave. For event 2, what will be the behavior? For event 3, what is its behavior? So for each event, okay, which is explicit, or maybe it may also be an internal event, how our software behaves, how our software responds to those events. So with this focus, we present our design plans, we model our design. Okay, in behavioral perspective, please understand it is dynamic. Okay, so we have different perspectives, different ways in which you can present your design plans as system models. Okay, and in each perspective, there is a focus on some aspect. Okay, for example, external perspective, the focus is on what is surrounding my software. Interaction perspective focuses on how things are interacting, how things are communicating with one another. Structural perspective, focus is on the parts, components in the software. Behavioral perspective, how my software is behaving for different events, for different inputs, okay, for different interrupts. So with this focus, with this emphasis, we present our plans, we present our design in system modeling. Now the big question is, which one is best? Which one is more popular? If this question comes to your mind, so then the answer is, so definitely you do not have one specific perspective which you can claim as the best one. See, it depends on the need, it depends on the situation. Okay, maybe an analyst may choose external perspective to present the design plans. The analyst may use structural perspective, okay, or typically all the perspectives will be used, all the models will be used to present the design plan, okay. So that can also happen. So there is no one best way or one best perspective that we can select and choose as the most popular one, as the most widely accepted design model, okay. So it depends on the situation, as I already mentioned, okay. Now we explored the different perspectives, fine. Now analyst, assume analyst is selecting external perspective, okay. He will use select external perspective. He will use some graphical illustrations to model the external perspective of the software, okay. He will use some graphical illustrations. Now while explaining to the client, maybe the analyst is present, okay, and he will explain, okay, this is the system with which the software is interacting, this is how it happens, okay. He will explain it, he will give clarifications, okay. Now as I already mentioned, maybe analyst, they will not be working on a single project, they will be into different projects, or maybe he may also leave the job and join a different company. He may quit his profession, meaning that the person who has presented the design, you cannot expect that person to be always present at that platform to explain things, okay, to clarify any questions. So here comes the need for having a standard, meaning to say that I have presented a design plan using a graphical illustration. So anyone who goes through this design plan should be able to understand this design plan without the presence of the person who has created it, okay. Even if that person who has modeled this graphically, who has presented this design plan, so even if he is not present at that point of time, whenever this design is being referred, so we should be able to understand, okay. Now how this can be achieved, okay. Now you see a small C program, okay. You go through the functionality, okay. You can make out the logic, you can understand what exactly this function is doing. Now what is the reason behind that? The reason is the program was written based on a properly defined syntax and semantics. That is the reason why you could also understand it, okay. So the same carries here. So we need some standard for presenting the model, for illustrating the different elements in the model. We should follow some standards so that anyone referring these models at any point of time should be able to understand what exactly was presented, what exactly was depicted in the plan, as part of the plan. So for that we need to have standards. Now who will give us the standards for these system models? So that is what is the next topic under discussion, that is UML, okay. So Unified Modeling Language. What is a UML? What is Unified Modeling Language? Okay. So UML is a standard way of presenting the system models, that's it, okay. Now maybe the next immediate question that may come to your mind is it that UML has just one modeling technique? Definitely not, okay. Once again, if you have a recap of the previous discussion, our software is diverse, software engineering process is diverse, okay. The perspectives are different. See, we just do not have one perspective, the perspectives are different, and if that is the case, so obviously it's a very easy guess that UML modeling is not just one way of coming out or presenting the model. Different modeling techniques are available in UML, okay, to support the different types of softwares, to support the diverse nature of the software, to support the different perspectives of modeling. So we have different types of UML diagrams. What are those? So that will be the next topic of discussion. That will be the next thing that we will be exploring as part of our discussion. So the next topic is system modeling using UMLs. So as already mentioned, UML is Unified Modeling Language. So Unified Modeling Language. What is offered by a UML? What is being offered? What is the value addition by UML to system modeling? So UML offers standard notations, okay, for coming out with your graphical illustrations with different diagrams, with different models. Now, what is the obvious benefit of it? Anyone who refers these models can understand your design plan, okay. And what is the benefit of someone understanding your design plan? So already we have discussed. If it is a client, he can give his approval to your software so that you can continue with your implementation. If he is part of an implementation team, he can understand what exactly needs to be coded. If he is a maintenance engineer, he can understand your design and identify the exact point where the flaw should be fixed, okay. So this is how different stakeholders can use these models. Now getting back to the discussion, UML, so Unified Modeling Language. So what is being offered by a UML? Okay. So as already discussed, it is different models with their own standard notations. Many model activity, many diagrams are there, many models are there. So we will handpick few for this discussion. Okay. So the very first one being the activity model, or it is even called as activity diagram. So please be clear, you cannot write the graphical illustrations in a vague manner. You cannot do it in your own way. First you need to understand what are the notations provided by the activity model, what are the notations defined in the activity model. First you need to understand it, then you need to use those notations to present your design plans, okay. Now what are the different notations, the details of which we will explore in later discussions. That is what is your module 3 all about. So different models, different diagrams, you will understand how you need to use different notations to present the design plans, okay. Now what is activity diagram or model, okay. See, it may be a software or it may be a manual activity, okay. Whatever you are doing, you cannot just complete it in one shot. You need to follow some set of activities, some steps, okay. So you want to move from maybe from Mysore to Bangalore, you cannot suddenly jump, okay, from Mysore to Bangalore. So you need to follow some steps, okay, some sequence, okay. Now what are the steps you need to follow in order to move from maybe Mysore to Bangalore? Okay, first you need to catch maybe a cab, a bus or a train. You need to go and sit. Okay, then you need to navigate. You need to reach the destination. So you need to follow some activities here. Okay. What are the different activities and how these activities happen in sequence? What is activity 1? What is activity 2? What is activity 3? Okay, until we reach the final point. So all these things, the plan about it, the planning about it is presented in activity model. Okay. For example, we will consider the patient monitoring system, patient monitoring software. Okay. Now, from the point a patient books his appointment to the point where he may be discharged from the hospital, what are the different activities that may be conducted? Okay. So presenting those plans may be done using activity model. For example, as part of activity 1, the patient books an appointment. As part of activity 2, he comes down to the hospital for a diagnosis by the doctor. The doctor diagnoses and maybe he recommends the patient to be admitted to the hospital, maybe for a surgery, major or minor one, whatever it is. So now the need is he should be admitted to the hospital. As part of it, now activity 3 is searching for a ward and bed for the patient. That is activity 3. Okay. Now he will be admitted to the hospital. Now a specific date and time will be fixed for surgery. Maybe that may be activity number 4. On that day, on that time, surgery may be done to the patient. Okay. Activity 5. Once done with the surgery, now maybe the patient will anyhow be admitted back, and once he recovers, he needs to be discharged, and during that point of time he need to pay the bill. Maybe that is activity 5. Okay, billing the patient. So please note, the patient just did not get into the hospital and he did not get discharged. Okay, there were some set of activities that were part of the process, and that needs to be managed by the patient monitoring software. The software should manage this, booking an appointment for the patient. Okay. Next, helping the patient search for a ward and bed, scheduling this appointment for maybe surgery, okay, computing his bills. See, all these things needs to be managed by the software. And what are our plans with respect to the software to manage all these activities? Presenting your plans can be done using activity diagram. So now I will not touch upon the different notations or examples for activity diagram, because it's a major topic that we will cover in the next sessions, okay, later sessions. So this was one of the modeling technique that is available with UML, okay, the activity diagram. Second one being the use case diagram, use case model or use case diagram. What we are presenting here in use case diagram, what are our plans here, okay, what exactly we want to present. Okay, now software is not a unit which will just stay put. Okay, someone will be using it, someone will be interacting with it. Okay, now who are the different stakeholders, and how the different stakeholders interact with the software? So plans about it will be modeled, can be modeled using use case diagram. Okay, just to give you an idea here, consider the same patient monitoring software. Now who are the different stakeholders for a patient monitoring software in a hospital? Okay, so it may be a doctor, it may be a patient. Now a doctor or a patient, how he can interact with the software, a patient monitoring software. So we will present our plans, okay, using use case diagram. Typically, for example, now it's a patient. Now each and every stakeholder will be represented using a notation. That is what I was emphasizing on this. From the very starting point of UML, we have fixed notations. You should use it so that anyone who goes through this can understand. Okay, so this is this. Okay, now a stick-like figure that you can see here represents a stakeholder. For example, a patient. Okay, this patient, how we can interact with the software. So already we have experienced this in many different topics. Okay, he can go for an online booking. Okay, he can book for an appointment. Just now I told you, once he finishes his consultation, he can pay the bills, bill payment. Just two roles I have mentioned. I mean, two ways in which a patient can interact with the patient monitoring software. Now it is not only the patient. There are other stakeholders also who will be interacting with the software in a particular way. Who are they? How they interact? So we can continue with this. Okay, maybe if he is a doctor, so we will introduce one more notation here. Now he is a doctor. How he is interacting with the software. Please try to remember, when a patient visits, okay, doctor will diagnose the patient and he will update the medical history with the current data, current observations, okay, meaning that doctor is responsible for updating the medical records of the patient based on the current diagnosis. The doctor can also give prescriptions to the patient, okay, he can give the prescriptions. Please note, the focus here is on identifying the different stakeholders and how they interact with our software. In this specific case, it is patient monitoring software. Okay, so this was use case model, and we are using it for a specific purpose. This can be one perspective. As I already mentioned, we can model a software in a specific perspective. This can be one perspective. This was the second one, the use case diagram. So third one being the sequence diagram. So sequence diagram, what exactly we model, what we present, or what we can present using a sequence diagram. Okay. See, sequence diagram is responsible for presenting the plans, taking into consideration the interaction perspective. So just now I mentioned in my previous discussion, perspective can be based on the interaction. Okay. So at what points of time, what interactions are happening, okay, by the software, how it is being managed by the software. So the planning about it will be presented in sequence diagram. Okay. For example, we will consider the patient booking an appointment. Okay. See, it does not happen in one shot. It cannot happen in one time shot. Okay. There will be a set of or series of time events because of which the patient will be able to book an appointment. Okay. For example, maybe at a time T1, the patient will send a request through a online platform to the receptionist. The receptionist will receive it. Now maybe at the time T2, receptionist will have a discussion with the doctor. Receptionist will check the schedule of the doctor, and if the doctor is free on that date and time preferred by the patient, so the receptionist will confirm the appointment to the patient, maybe at a time T3. Please note, we have interaction here between patient, receptionist and doctor, but in a time fashioned way. Okay. First, patient should interact with receptionist with doctor, maybe doctor confirming back to the receptionist once again acknowledging back to the patient. Okay, so interaction is happening, but in an ordered fashion. The plans about it presented through a model, that is sequence diagram. You can use sequence diagram to present these plans. Okay, so at what point of time, what type of interaction is happening. So that was the third one, the sequence diagram, which is a type of UML used in system modeling. Okay. So now coming to the next one, fourth one. So fourth one is class models or class diagram. So already we had explored class diagram, class model in the second module, because major emphasis in design is the two. If you are using object oriented design, the major emphasis is on identifying classes and objects, because that is the starting point. Okay. So you have identified the classes. Okay. For each class you have identified the properties and operations. Okay. You present it. You also present how the classes are related to one another, and that is your class diagram. For example, so we had seen this. So they can be a class by name patient, the patient monitoring software. Okay. Now patient will have few properties, few attributes which are very unique to the patient, like maybe patient may have a patient ID using which we can uniquely identify a patient. Also patient will have a name, mobile number, email ID. Okay. So these are attributes of patients which are very unique to patients, okay, of a hospital. There can be some operations, some actions the patient can do that will come in the third block. So we had already seen this in module 2, so I will not go into the details of it. Okay. Like the patient can book an appointment, he can meet a doctor, he can get admitted. These are some actions that can be done by the patient that comes into the third block. So which class, properties of the class and operations on the class presented, and also how this class is related to another class in the software. See, it is not like a software will have just one class. Typically a software is complex, software is dealt using software engineering principles. Obviously it will be complex software, meaning to say that there will be many classes as part of the design. So how this class is related to maybe other class, a different class. Okay. Does this class have any subclasses? So all these plans, all these design plans will be presented in the class diagram. Now class diagram is restricted, meaning to say that class diagram is static. You just get to know what are the classes, what are its properties, and to what other classes it is related. You are not getting information about how the classes are interacting. You are not getting information about how the class is behaving, or maybe how set of classes are behaving and in what fashion. So you cannot get these information through a class diagram. It's a static model. Okay. But still you can get to know what are the different classes and its attributes. Okay. So that was the fourth one. So the last one, the fifth one, is the state diagram. Now, what is a state diagram? Okay. See, a system or a software does not remain fixed, okay, for a maybe longer period of time. Its states keeps on changing. Now, based on what criteria its state may change. Okay, maybe because of an event, it may enter from one state to another state. Because of an input, it may enter or it may change its state. Okay. So what was that event? What was that input? Which resulted in the state of the software getting changed. Okay. Or to put it in other words, I'll try to demonstrate it in simple terms. Anyhow, we have the detailing of it, the later part of the module. Okay. So assume my software was in state 1. Okay. Assume this was a patient monitoring software. We have just now opened the software. It was in state 1. Now some patient is trying to access this software through an online platform to book an appointment. Now the state of the software is not the same. Okay. Because of a request from a patient, the software has changed its state from S1 to S2. So S1 is the old state and S2 is the new state. Now what was that event? What was that input which resulted in the change of the state? So that will be maybe it will be written over the line. So what was that input? Maybe in this example, a request for a patient for appointment. Okay. So the different states of the software at different instances of time is what is presented, is what is modeled in state diagram. Okay. But please be careful, we cannot present our plans using these diagrams in our own way. Okay. You cannot just use your own graphical illustrations to present your plans. So if you are using UML diagrams to present your design plans, if you are choosing a specific model or a specific diagram, the very first thing is please understand what are the notations in that model. Okay. use those notations and present your plans. So that is how you need to do it. Once again, the same old question, is it that we have one of the best ways of doing it? Is it the sequence diagram is the best way of presenting our plans? Okay, need not be. So it is based on what exactly you want to present and to whom you want to present it. Okay, so you can choose any of the modeling technique, you can choose any of the diagrams, or maybe you can choose all the diagrams, so that you can present your software in different dimensions. Okay, so that can also happen. So this was system modeling with UML, the third topic under discussion. Okay. Now going to the fourth topic. Now going to the fourth part. Okay. See, the fourth topic is dealing with the context model. Okay. Now what is a context model? Where exactly it fits in system model? So we will try to explore. So the context model. So once again, please try to have a recap. We can have different system models in different perspectives. The very first one I had dealt with was external perspective, okay, where the focus was on what are the different systems surrounding our software, okay, what systems are present in the environment of our software. So with the focus on that, with emphasis on that, we presented our design plans. Okay. So the key idea here was the external perspective. Okay. You are doing the same in context model, but using the standard notations of UML. Okay. So how exactly it can be done? So I will try to discuss with small example, and also we need to consider the notations. Okay. You cannot bypass the notations. The notations defined in UML for context model, we should use it. What are those notations? We will try to explore. Okay. I will present it at an abstract level, okay, with the focus on just helping you understand how exactly context model will be written. Okay. So we have a rectangular block representing our software, that is PMS, that is patient monitoring software. Okay. Now this patient monitoring software is a separate software. Okay. It's a system. To indicate it's one software, we use two angular brackets, and inside that we write it as a system and we close it. This is an indicator that this is a separate software. Okay. It's one single software. Now this patient monitoring system. Now as I already mentioned, this patient monitoring system cannot function on its own. There will be some other systems in its environment with which the patient monitoring software should interact to give the required service, to get the required things done. What are the other systems in the environment of a PMS? So we will present those details here. Okay. So typically it can be maybe an appointment system. So we have an appointment system. So immediately when you see this, you need to understand patients booking an appointment, patients getting a confirmation for the appointment. It is managed by a different system, not by the PMS software, but PMS software is interacting with this, indicated through a line, and this is a separate system. So as I already informed, we need to use this notation. Okay. So in similar lines, we can have other systems like maybe a record maintenance system, a rectangular block, indicate the type of system, a record system. I'll write it as record maintenance system or record system. Please understand it is a separate system but in the environment of PS. It's not completely outside the environment or a different software. May be a different software or a system, but it is within the environment of the PMS, meaning that it will work with PMS to give the required service. Okay. Now, what is the service or what may be the service given by the record system? See, please try to remember After the diagnosis has been done by the doctor, the patient details will be updated, the diagnosis details will be updated. Now where it will be updated? Where it will be stored? So it will be stored in the record system. Record system will update, will maintain the details of all registered patients with the hospital. Okay. Similarly, we can have a statistics system, a separate system. We call it as the statistics. Now, what is the statistics system? Who will use it? What information is provided by this system? Is it related to PMS? Okay. So the answer to the very first question, statistics, it gives details of maybe how many patients visited the hospital, how many patients were admitted, how much billing was generated on maybe on that specific day, on that week, or maybe on that specific month, whatever it is. So managers may use this information, okay, to plan strategies, for planning the budget. Okay. Please note this information is not maintained, it's not computed by the PMS, but it is managed by the PMS with the help of the statistics system. Okay. So that may be one possibility. Also, I made a point, maybe if the doctor recommends operation on a patient, so he needs to be admitted to the hospital, so in-house treatment, that is the case, we need to have a separate system, the admission system. Okay, please note it's a separate system, but still it is working with the PMS to give the required service. Okay, so the admission system may be responsible for searching for a ward or bed which is free for that specific patient. Okay, also once he was operated and the doctor has decided he can be discharged, billing may be computed by the admission system. Okay, or maybe we may have a separate system for billing, it depends. Okay. Still many systems can exist in this environment, so I have just highlighted few important ones. Now this is the context model. It is defining the context of the software. Context here means the environment, okay, the environment of the software. Now someone who sees or who visualizes this design, can he immediately understand these are the different systems in the environment of the patient monitoring software? Can he immediately visualize and get clarity regarding this? So the answer to this question is yes, because it is using predefined notations. Immediately someone sees this rectangular block, so they can be very clear that yes, it's a software or a system. Okay. Immediately someone sees a line connected from one system to another system, so they can make out yes, they are working in synchronization to give the desired function of this software. So because of the usage of predefined notations, visualization and clarity improves. No need of anyone standing and explaining this is what it is for. Okay, no need of that. You can just go through if you are really clear about the notations. Okay, and if you are familiar with the way design details are presented, maybe using a specific diagram or a modeling technique, so at the first glance itself you can get clarity about the design plans in that specific perspective. Okay, so this was context model, which defines the operational context of the PMS. Now the patient monitoring system should operate and give the service with what other systems it is interacting. So that information is modeled, it is presented using the context model. Okay, it is also giving the boundaries here. It is demonstrating the boundaries. Okay, where exactly our software is sitting in this context, what is surrounding our software, what is external to our software. So this information is being given, application context is being illustrated here. The environment is being presented. Okay. Now you may start wondering, this line that is indicating some interaction is happening, how the interaction is happening. Okay. So it depends on how exactly the deployment will be planned. Okay. Deployment during implementation may be planned in such a way that this admission and PMS, okay, may be connected through a network, or they may sit in a single server but as separate systems. Okay, so planning about it can be done during deployment. Okay. So this was context model. So in this session we understood what is system modeling, where exactly it fits in the software engineering process. So we understood, once done with the requirement and we are out with a design plan, we need a mechanism to present our plans, okay, to document our plans, to demonstrate our plans, and the best way of doing it is using graphical illustrations, and that is where system modeling comes into picture. So we also understood modeling does not give you complete details about the design plans of the software, but at an abstract level. Okay. We also understood modeling is based on the perspective, what exactly you want to present. Okay. So based on that, you try to come out with a model. Okay. What are the different perspectives that are supported, that are available? So we discussed that. We also understood the importance and significance of standards in modeling. Okay. You just coming out with a model with your own thought process will definitely not help others understand what exactly you want to present. Okay, so for which you have UML. So the different models available in UML. So we understood. So we also understood the external perspective supported in UML in the form of a context model. Okay, so that was for this session. So in the next session we will take up the process models, and we will try to explore what is process models and how it is used to present the design plans. So thank you.